Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us for another episode as we continue studying through the Word of God together. We're glad you're with us. Hope the next few minutes will be a help and encouragement to you as we continue in our study through the book of Judges. If you're following along with us, we are in the book of Judges, chapter 11. As we're working our way through, again, probably a little more unfamiliar judge, as we're more familiar with judges like Gideon and Samson, the ones that have just more coverage in the book. But we're going to look at a scenario today where this judge Jepthah we talked about last time, was kind of kicked out due to his ancestry. The fact that his mom was a prostitute, so he was removed out, and yet now they've come back and asked him to come back and lead. So now he's going to go to war, he's going to lead. But one of the great principles we're going to see in this situation is before he ends up going to war, he does everything and he strives to do his best to resolve the conflict with truth, with diplomacy is what we'd kind of call it today. But the principle we can get from this is that when there's conflict, we can spend a lot of time sharing our point of view or their point of view or arguing, but truth is the thing that brings the answer. Now, we'll learn on this one, not everybody wants to hear the truth, but truth is what we should be looking for. And we'll also see a little bit of God's working through this entire process and when God fights for us. But we're going to be in Judges chapter 11. We're going to jump in to verse number 12 of Judges 11. It says this: Then Jepthah sent messengers to the king of Ammonites and said, "What do you have against me, that you have come to me to fight against my land?" And the king of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jepthah, "Because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, took away my land, from the Arnon to Jabbok to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably." Jepthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites. Now, so what happens is they come to war. Israel had been there for a long period of time, so it was awfully strange they would come up. But they come, and instead of just going to war, he's like, "What's going on? Let's try diplomacy. Let's find out why you're upset. Let's not just go straight to war. Let's see if we can resolve this peaceably." So he asks the question. They come back with the idea that Israel had stolen their land. When they were coming from Egypt and going through, that they'd stolen their land and they wanted it back without going to war. Now, that information wasn't 100% accurate, and so what Jepthah does, instead of being defensive, he just simply gives the truth, and that's what we're going to see in this section. He says this verse 15. Verse 14, again, Jepthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus says Jepthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites. But when they came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh. Israel then sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, 'Please let us pass through your land.' But the king of Edom would not listen, and they sent also to the king of Moab, but the king would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then they journeyed through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab and arrived at the east side of the land of Moab and camped on the other side of Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Then Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon, and Israel said to him, 'Please let us pass through your land to our country.' But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all of his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. And they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from Arnon to Jabbok and from the wilderness to Jordan. So then the Lord, the God of Israel, disposed the Amorites from before his people Israel. And are you to take possession of them? Will you not possess what Chemath your God gives you to possess? And all that the Lord our God has disposed before us will we possess. Now are you any better than Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did you ever contend against Israel? Did you ever go to war with them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and Aor and its villages, and all the cities that are on the bank of Arnon, 300 years, why did you not deliver them within that time?" So you see what he does is he goes back and gives a history lesson. And you can see from the history lesson that they attempted at first to peaceably get permission from the people to enter through their land. They didn't want to cause grief. Remember, Israel was traveling with over 1 million people. It's a very large group. But they just wanted to go through. They wanted to get to their land that God had promised them. So they just kept asking, can we have permission? And they kept getting told no. And so instead of fighting or complaining, they just kept trying to find other ways around it. In fact, they didn't go through a certain land because it was of the border of a land where they'd already been told not to go through. And so they go to the last king, the one in reference to this war, And not only did the king say, no, you can't go through, say, I'm afraid you will go through what you're going to do. They went to war with Israel. Said, we're just going to eliminate you, assuming conflict, I guess, but comes in and just decides to go at war. Well, he goes at war with Israel, and so God delivers them into Israel's hands. Now, please remember, in this day and age, when you went to war with a nation, if you defeated the nation, you took possession of that nation. That wasn't a thing that God had established. That was the culture of the day. You hear about a lot of people, they would defeat the land. They took possession of the land. They're known for great warriors in that area. And so God had helped them win the war and gave it to them. He even asked the king, he goes, if your God had given you land, would you not possess it? It makes sense. We didn't steal your land, is what he was saying. We won your land. You attacked us. We defended ourselves. God gave us the land. We took possession of it. And it's been all this time. Why are you worried about it now? And so he gives us history lesson. And really what he's trying to do is he's trying to use truth. We can argue all day long. We can find a reason to fight. But the fact is, let's go back to truth. Let's bring up the reality of what's happening. Not my opinion, not your opinion. And that's one of the greatest things we can do in conflict. A lot of times in conflict, when there's conflict in any relationship, or whether it's a close one like a marriage or a work one where there's tension there too, we have a tendency to view things from our perspective. We have a tendency to view things the way we want to view them. We're more concerned about winning an argument than we are about getting down to truth. And here's the problem with that. When we get down to truth, we're not always the harbinger of the truth of that situation. So yes, while we have an understanding of our perspective of what we know what happened, there is the other side of this where we have to hear what the other people are saying. People say there's two sides to every story. You can honestly say there's three sides to every story. There's my point of view, their point of view, and the truth. When I say that is, I will view what's going on through my perspective, or at least how I understand it to be. One of the greatest things you can do in today's day and age, in relationships, in conflict today, is listen. Listen to the other side. The Bible tells us, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. But we're so quick to make sure that our point of view is heard that often leads to even greater conflict. Now let's look and see what happens after Jepthah gives all this information. Verse 27, I therefore have not sinned against you, and you do me wrong by making war on me. The Lord, the judge, decides this day between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon. But the kings of Ammonites did not listen to the words of Jepthah that he sent to him. So you've got a scenario. Listen, we did nothing wrong. Everything was right by what our God did and by cultural law, but you still want to do war. And now God today, again, will decide who's going to win. But the king didn't want to hear it. He wanted to go to war. Truth was not going to change what he wanted to do. And that often happens in conflict. Unfortunately, some people, they just either want to fight or they want their way, and they don't care what truth, they don't care what should be happening, they just want their way. First of all, I hope we're not that way. Our desire is to be looking for peace. But in some situations, it's complicated. What happens when the truth is on your side? And I don't mean you believe your point of view is true. I mean the truth is on your side, and you're trying to share. You're trying to come to reconciliation. You're not trying to win an argument. You're trying to just bring reconciliation to that relationship, and the other side just does not want to hear it. Well, unfortunately, it's all you can do at that point. In that situation, you do your part. You ask what you've done. You do everything you can to take responsibility for your actions, and you do everything you can to restore. And then you can only go so far, and you have to wait for the other side to want that same thing. And that's the challenge. So let's bring it to truth, bring it to peace, not about I want my way. And that's usually what happens. This guy just wanted his way. And that's generally what happens, as people just simply, they want their way. They don't care about truth. They just want it their way, and conflict comes that way. The Bible clearly says only by pride comes contention. And that's generally what it comes down to. A lot of times conflict comes down to, well, it always will come down to, there is pride somewhere in it. Because if I'm humble enough, even if that other person is just really fighting, if I'm humble enough, somebody just wants their way, well, I'm willing to stop and try and find out what is it that's driving it. What is it that's causing their grief or their frustration? How can we get to common ground? That humility is a great way to bring peace. And it's that pride that brings just continual conflict, whether it's in a marriage, in a home, at work, wherever, at church, wherever it might be, and where a relationship could be. It's that pride that can hurt us. And may we not allow our pride to drive us to hurt a relationship. May we strive to step up in humility and allow truth and honestly, the view of the other person, listen and see how we can use that to come to peace, not necessarily always just trying to win an argument. Well, I greatly appreciate the privilege you have to me to be part of your day. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope you continue as we will work through Book of Judges. We'll finish up about this judge next time, and then we'll work a little bit more into some more familiar judges here in the next couple episodes as we continue to see how God uses everybody to be used greatly of him. Again, thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next time.